In the weeks leading up to November the 11th, Peel Regional Police wear their poppies as a sign of respect and remembrance for those who fought in countless battles at sea, on the ground, and in the air. We will place wreaths on memorials and take part in ceremonies to honor those Canadians who fought for our freedom, many making the ultimate sacrifice. Democracy and freedom should never be taken for granted. The bravery and dedication of our veterans and serving members will always inspire us, and their achievements are still making a difference to millions of Canadians and others around the world today. I would like to acknowledge all the veterans and the veterans that are here with me today for this podcast. Thank you for your bravery and heroism. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you continue to do today. Peel Regional Police remembers those who have served Canada in the past, and we salute those who continue to serve Canada today.
Good day, everybody. That was powerful. That was Deputy Chief Mark Andrews. Thank you, Deputy Chief Mark Andrews. Good day, everybody. I'm Sergeant Joe Carty, and I want to thank you very much for listening to our podcast. In today's podcast, we will show appreciation to members of our military, past and present. Today, we have 3 guests, something that we don't usually do. It's usually one-on-one. It's going to be a panel discussion, and all our guests started their career in the military and are continue to serve their communities by being members of Peel Regional Police. And please welcome, Constable Nick Arakgi.
Hi, Sarge. How you doing?
I'm doing well, and we have also Constable Allan Chin.
How you doing?
And special, we put you on the spot here, because I don't know if you knew you were going to be on this podcast, Constable Tyrus Darcy.
Thank you. Last minute addition
To this. So this is going to be a panel discussion. We're going to talk about the military, talk about policing, and before we get started, let's hear about you. Constable Arakgi.
Yeah.
Tell me about your military before we get started.
Sure. I joined the military in 1998. I joined the Army Reserve in Hamilton. My regiment is the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry based there. I started as a private soldier, so in the lower ranks, and I've moved my way up. I'm currently the deputy commanding officer of the regiment, so the second in command at the rank of major. So I've worked pretty much at every single job from bottom to top.
So you're currently a major in the military?
That's correct, yes.
And I would basically say that's equivalent to an inspector in policing?
Well, yeah, it's tough to make the comparison sometimes, but yes, I'm the second in command of an Army Reserve unit of about I think 250 to 300 soldiers.
Wow.
In Hamilton. And then sort of during my time, I've been on 2 deployments. First in 2008 to Afghanistan, and I also deployed in 2017 to Ukraine for 6 months as well.
Well, anyways, our second guest. We're going to put him on the spot. Tyrus Darcy. Welcome.
Thank you.
How was your military career? How did you get started in all this?
So I got started in 2004. I joined the Royal Hamilton Light Infantry, the same regiment as Nick. And I'm currently a corporal, so second rank up from the working ranks. Trying to work a little bit harder now to get more of a leadership role. I just haven't been able to move forward on that because I ended up getting hired with Peel in 2007, which kind of stifled my moving up the ranks in the military. So with Peel, I started in 2007. I started at 12 Division. I went to our regional breath unit as a breathalyzer technician, and I've done a uniform at 21, CIB, Criminal Investigation Bureau at 21, and I'm currently in our incident response training unit.
Well, you've been everywhere too. Mr. Chin, our third of this panel, how you been? Welcome to this podcast.
I'm good. I'm feeling old now. Wow.
Now, how did your military career? When did you start?
I actually started in 1994, joined the 48 Highlanders of Canada, usually referred to Toronto's regiment. With my time with that regiment, I was able to serve various operations, Bosnia and Afghanistan, and also domestic operations. I joined Peel in 2000, worked uniform in 12, 21, the airport, part of the unit, tactical unit, the protection unit, and now currently intimate partner violence. So, been around.
You've definitely been around. Someone told me you paved the way for military to continue working in the military and Peel. What is this story about? I heard about it, but don't know much about it.
So, again, I was a serving member with Peel Regional Police, because obviously I got on in 2000, and also with the Army Reserves. In 2005, with the events in 9/11, I had submitted a request, a leave of absence to serve in Afghanistan. At the time, we didn't have the process to deal with military leave, just the regular directive that we had for a regular leave of absence, whether it be someone requested leave of absence for education or for family purposes. That was the leave that the directives that it was followed. With the process, it was approved by divisional command. So you're thinking usually once it's approved by divisional command, you're okay. I signed on the dotted line with my military contract that I'll be serving a 12-month tour. However, it went up to CMG, and it was eventually actually denied.
And for CMG, for people who don't know, that's our Chief Management Group.
Yes, and that was under Chief Catney. So I had a choice to make: serve with the contract I signed, serve my country in Afghanistan, or I had to resign. I actually chose that, and I resigned from Peel Regional Police to carry out my commitment in Afghanistan. However, I recognized that there was issues with things in place, and so with the association, I challenged the process and practices that were present, and I believed it had presented inappropriate barriers to the organizational success. And so with the association, we assisted in trying to rectify what was present.
Because of all this work you've done, you're the first.
Yes.
That means you could be a Peel police officer, and let's say Canada's going on a peacekeeping mission again, we could go over and serve now.
That's correct.
You could take a leave of absence from policing. I was going to spend a lot of this on the Afghanistan war, but I want to talk about, you mentioned Bosnia. You
Yes.
served in Bosnia.
Yes, in 1997 to 1998.
What was the Bosnia war about for the audience?
So at the time, you have the former Republic of Yugoslavia. At the time, you have Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina were both fighting wars of independence, sometimes against each other, other times against the Serbians. At the time, obviously, the world looking on, and then you had different atrocities occurring. The world stepped in, to assist. The conflict in the Balkans began in 1991 after the dissolution and fragmentation of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia.
Well, you really know your stuff.
Well, I've done presentations with schools.
Okay, so what was the role of Canada
So as part of NATO, and whether it was I-4 or S-4, went into Yugoslavia, the former Republic of Yugoslavia, and basically as peacekeepers, right? There was the accords that were agreed upon, and we were there as part of NATO to enforce these peace agreements, basically, and to keep the warring factions and sides at bay, and try to actually, because we've gone in, I went in 97, 98 after the war, and tried to rebuild, and actually people that were displaced, have them come back into their communities.
Wow. So what you say is the success for our Canadian military in
Yes.
Bosnia?
That mission was a long mission. I think it was 19 plus years. It was a success because now you have functioning governments, they hold elections, and they participate in world events.
Yeah.
Actually, while I was in Afghanistan, there was actually troops from Croatia that were part of that commitment.
Wow.
So that shows you how far they've come.
My question to you, all three of you, is I think what the community would like to know is, how do you tell your loved ones that you're going to Afghanistan or you're going to Bosnia? Like, you just come home one day and say, hey, by the way, guess what, I'm going tomorrow. Like, that's not an easy conversation.
No, it's not an easy conversation, but it's not you don't surprise them because usually conflict would start and the government will send in your forward troops, right? Your forward elements, right, to do their reconnaissance on the ground, to see what we need. Are we going to actually put in a main battle group? So it's in the news, the government's talking about it, and guess what? When the government's talking about it, you're talking about it at your table, at your dinner table. And so it's conversation, because my mom would go, are you going to be going to Afghanistan?
They must have been nervous.
Yeah, and I said, well, I'd like to, but first I work with Regional Police. I have to see if they actually allow me to
Yes.
go to Pure. And so it wasn't a surprise conversation, but I think when I actually did say I signed on the dotted line and I am going to Afghanistan, it was like, ooh, do you really want to?
How did you do it, Nick, with your family? Were they thumbs up, this is great, or were they nervous?
No, I don't think I was getting thumbs up when I was going. They were very apprehensive, as I'm sure you can imagine, but they were very supportive. Like Al was saying, I don't think it was a secret in my family that I wanted to serve my country, and I had been in the Army Reserve for about, I guess, almost 10 years at that point. I've been a police officer for 2 or 3, so they knew that it was something I wanted to do, so they knew it was sort of a possibility. So yeah, nervous, but I explained to them why I was doing it, and I gave them as much information as I can, and they supported me along the way.
So you, Afghanistan, obviously you're Bosnia, Afghanistan to Al, and Tyrus, you never went overseas, have you?
No, I've never been overseas. I guess you can technically call it a deployment, but it was domestically with the G8G20 summit.
Oh, that wasn't an easy one.
I went to Huntsville, and the role there was just to be outside of where the police cordon was. So that's, I guess, technically a deployment, but not in the same light. But no, I haven't deployed overseas.
So is your training differently? Like when you guys get deployed, does Al and Nick, do you receive different training than, let's say, Tyrus who you didn't? Or is it the same?
No. You do have your basic warfare skills that you will cover, but then you will train according to your mission and what's going on. So my training, when I first deployed to Bosnia, we really did traditional training, combat teams with tanks, with all your combat team elements, whereas my deployment to Afghanistan was that, but also dealt with a lot of, we had cultural integration, training, going into other aspects than war, right?
So you were especially trained because you're going to Afghanistan with certain things, like the culture and all that. Obviously, Tyrus, you weren't because you weren't going. That makes sense. Where were you stationed, Al, in Afghanistan?
So I actually got stationed at several camps throughout my tour in Afghanistan.
So you're all over the country?
All over the country. So actually, my first deployment was actually into the support element, which was Camp Mirage, which initially was stationed out of Dubai. Then I deployed into Kabul in the northern part. Once that camp closed down, I got relocated and attached to units in Kandahar. So I worked with the Air Force in Mirage because that was the main support element. Worked with 2RCR, Echo Company, in Kabul, and then I got reattached to the 3rd Battalion PPCLI, Princess Patricia's Light Infantry, in the southern part in Kandahar. And so I did a lot of flight time with C-130 Hawks going in and out, and then to the different various camps.
Wow. Nick, where were you deployed? Where were you stationed?
So I was in Kandahar province, in a district of the province called Zari district, so about 30 kilometers outside Kandahar city, to the west of it. I was my job was I did a similar training to Al. We call it pre-deployment training, where we move into a level of high readiness, and I also had some specialist training because my job, very early on, I was identified as an Army reservist who was also a police officer. So they moved me into a role where I was going to mentor the Afghan police there. So I was sent to a forward operating base called Forward Operating Base Wilson, and I was responsible for a platoon of Canadian soldiers who were basically put into small detachments to work hand in hand with the Afghan police on operations for about 7 months.
How do you stay in touch with your family and friends? Is it like the old, like, are you allowed to use your phones, or is it mail service?
It's a bit of old school mail. Where I was, and everybody has different experience. It depends on the mission. A little bit of every once in a while you get a phone call, an ability to make a phone call, or a lot of emails, or even a lot of regular snail mail. I remember always getting a package was sort of the highlight of, you sort of morale lives and dies on when the next mail run is coming in with packages from home.
Is it true they had a Tim Hortons in there?
Not where I was. I was pretty far from the Tim Hortons. But there was one there that at Kandahar Airfield, the famous Tim Hortons was there, but I wasn't near there, so I only got to experience it a couple times.
Yeah, the Kandahar Airfield, again, major base, one of the main support bases for the U.S. And for the air troops. So you had Tim Hortons, but you also had all the other U.S. chains. So I think there was Burger King, there was Starbucks, Taco Bell. So again, the U.S. recognizes that what can we do to keep troops' morale up? And if it's just making sure they want a burger or a coffee, and that keeps morale up, we'll do it.
Yes, I remember during my education for World War II, the Americans, they all had to have Coca-Cola, so that would get delivered across these Coca-Cola to make them feel like they're at home. How was the physical environment in Afghanistan? Because I know if there was a war in Canada, people had to dress for the cold. Did you guys know going in what the environment is, or did they? I'm assuming because the Army's really prepared.
Well, yes, that's part of your pre-deployment training. So you do go over what to expect. Again, you want to know, and again, weather, that's one thing. You go into insects, what type of animals you might encounter, stuff like that, because again, it is a different part of the world. For me, we went, it was okay. We went from the springtime in Canada going into Afghanistan, but again, that went from, your 15, 20 degrees to all of a sudden 51 to 60 degrees.
Wow.
Celsius, right?
Yeah.
So that's a major change, and then you get into Afghanistan. You have the elevation now to deal with, and it takes a while for you to acclimatize, right, to the elevation, the thinner air, but you do, right? You're there for a while, so you do acclimatize.
And Tyrus, you're in Canada during all this, but you could get deployed anytime. You don't know when that's coming, if it does come or doesn't coming. So mentally, are you preparing that I might be going next if they ask on me?
Not so much as a reservist, especially being a police officer. As a reservist, it's a voluntary process to go in and apply to go overseas. But also being a police officer, that part generally comes first. So I know like our unit recognizes police officers as needing to stay at home if, say, something happened within Canada. But as a reservist, I'm not forced to go overseas at this point in time.
Okay, this is a tough question to ask, but I know I have to ask it. And this is for the whole panel. Did you guys witness any casualties or suffer any injuries yourself during your tour? Let's start with you, Nick.
So I was in a forward operating base, so I was going on operations with the Afghan police, and I also worked with the Afghan Army with some other Canadian mentors, so we were on a lot of operations. So I was lucky I came through unscathed, but I worked with a lot of brave men and women in my platoon, and there were some casualties, and that's part of, unfortunately, the mission. There were ups and downs and of the mission, and that was part of it. Yes.
Al?
When we were part of the Royal Canadian Regiment in Kabul, we worked with Private Ron Scott Woodfield, and when we moved to Kandahar, sadly, there was a vehicle rollover with his lav, and he ended up dying. So our platoon did suffer casualty when I was there, and there was general casualties with other troops. So my section, my platoon, were able to make it out unscathed, but at the same time we did encounter, because we worked with U.S. troops, we did encounter that.
It's not easy. What are some of the things you remember most about your deployment? Let's start with you, Al.
Deployment to Afghanistan?
Yeah, let's stick with that one.
Stick with that
Is
one.
it the
Okay.
Taco Bell that you have Americans?
You know what? It's just the way the Afghans lived. You were there, and they literally will, I wouldn't say mud huts, but it is. They make mud bricks, and they put their homes together, and they live very simple lives. It was sad to see when you have kids drinking from, mainly one of the main sewers coming down. They'll be putting bottles into the sewer where there's running water, and that's where they got their drinking water. So, we would throw bottles of water, but again, it only comes to so much bottles you could throw, right, to kids in Afghanistan, in Kandahar. So projects like digging wells and getting wells functioning to have running water, that actually does highlight and kind of bring to light why we were there, right? Because yes, we have a mission. We're there, dealing with, active terror cells. We had an active insurgency going on when I was there, but at the same time, we're trying to help the people. My 2IC actually was one of the first females to deploy, and she was used heavily in going out with the medical teams and providing assistance to the local population, to women and children, and that's huge.
Yeah, you have a lot of memories. How about you, Nick? What do you remember most?
I remember a lot. Like, it was, we're going on over a decade since I've been there, but it's the experience of going to Afghanistan, something you carry with you for the rest of your life. I remember, I was thinking of having some memories just while I was talking, because it brings up, when you talk with other veterans, it brings up all sorts of memories. I remember the men and women I served with, because you're there in challenging circumstances for a long period of time. That builds a camaraderie that is very difficult to replicate, and a lot of great Canadians from all over the country, different backgrounds, different experiences, all just trying to serve their country and also make another country, Afghanistan, a better place, and to make a difference in that nation. I remember a lot of the challenges. You joining the Army or the Army Reserve, you're made into a better person to be a better person, and I got to do things in Afghanistan that I would never get to do in Canada, doing challenging things, making decisions, leading great Canadians on operations, and you meet the Afghans themselves. All the citizens I work with. I was in more of a rural environment in the area I worked, and you met a lot of people that were just also the Afghan police I work with, also just trying to make their country a better place. And there were some remarkable local Afghans that I met during my time as well.
Good stories. How do you describe how you felt when it's over, when you're coming home?
It was a tough transition, because you are in, I was there for 7 months. I did 8 months of pre-deployment training like Al did before I even got there. So you're having this mindset, this warrior mindset, this mindset that you're on operations to keep yourself safe, to protect the soldiers that you're working with, your subordinates, and then you come home and you're back to sort of regular Canada, and a country and people that are very supportive of soldiers and the Canadian Armed Forces, but may not understand the experiences that we've been dealing with. So it's a challenging transition. I can think of a lot of memories of coming back, but it's I had a supportive family. The military does a lot of hard work to get us back into normal Canadian life, and it's a bit of a transition, but everybody gets used to being back home, I think.
This is a hot topic, but I have to ask it, and I'm not going to put you guys on the spot because we know what happened recently in Afghanistan with the decisions the governments have made. We're not here to second guess them or tell them what's right or what's wrong, because we don't have all the information, but I'm going to put it to you guys in a little narrow vision here. Your time period in Afghanistan, do you think that was successful or not? Let's go with you, Al.
I believe from my time, again, I was there for 7 months, and our main mission was, again, we're hearts and minds, right? Because again, that's, we've learned that we're in a foreign country, we're doing, military operations. You need to have the people, the locals on your side. Again, so we talked about providing medical needs to women and children, but also farming, right? So again, there are warlords. They grow poppy, and right, that's a huge part of the drug trade coming out of Afghanistan and that part of the world. Canada recognized that and said, you know what, we'll pay you more to grow wheat or corn, and so got them and gave them incentives to grow different crops, right, and crops that they could use, crops that they could export, and that was successful. That was part of the mission that was over there. So yes, for the narrow timelines, when we were there, we were given our mission statements, and we were able to accomplish it and build for future operations going forward.
You met your objectives. How about you, Nick?
I think my time there was successful. Like we were talking earlier, I worked with some great people, great Afghans that were, my job was to make them better police officers and bring my experiences to them. And I met a lot of dedicated Afghan policemen that were working hard to make their country better. I dwell on some experiences I had from other military members I worked with. I only went to Afghanistan once, but several Canadians went multiple times, and they could see the progression and improvement of the country as they went, and those are the things I remember, like Al, I think, mentioned, women going to school, improvements to the economy, better trained security forces, which is what we were working with. So I do believe that we had an impact for the better when we were there.
Being in the military and going to these foreign lands and what you guys had to go through, how does your time in the military affect you? Let's start with this is all three of you. Like, it's the train. Everything is different from the average person. Does it change who you are?
I don't know if it does change you, but again, that goes into just this job of policing. There's certain events that may occur, and it will change you as a police officer. So just like the military, if you're deployed, whether it's domestic operations or international operations, you could have events that will occur, and being very dramatic events, and it will have that impact on you and will change you. And so you just kind of, you get the support you need and you deal with it. So events like that, you kind of will carry with you, and then sometimes you will play back in your mind when you have a, maybe a bad day. You realize, I hate to say it, but it wasn't that bad. My day wasn't that bad compared to what I've experienced.
There's nothing wrong saying that.
Right. So.
Nick, has it been difficult to communicate to family and friends about your military service?
I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it's sometimes it is you gotta sometimes it can be a challenge. Like we were talking earlier, I draw similarities to my time as a police officer when you're a police officer and you're meeting your non-police friends, and they want to hear about your experiences as a cop, and they're coming at it with maybe a Hollywood TV sort of perspective, but it's you want to tell them, you want to share your experiences and tell you what real life policing is about, and it's very similar to the Army. I think where you really want them to understand the things you experience and understand the job that you do, but it's a challenge for that audience to maybe understand it because they don't have the experience, they don't share the same experiences that you do, they don't have that perspective. But I think it's very important to make that effort because just like in policing, it's important that we communicate. We try hard to communicate those experiences and articulate them so the public we serve or just family and friends understand the job that we do and the importance of it.
Now, all three of you guys are members of PRP. Obviously, you all became cops. You're serving the community again. Tyrus, military and policing, is it the same thing?
Yes and no. I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. And coming from a training background within Peel, the training aspect is very similar. So the makeup of how training is conducted and the makeup of how that message is put across and creating the environments needed to create as much realism as possible for whatever officers or soldiers need to encounter. Very similar in how that's created. But it's also different. There's different interests, right? A soldier is, on behalf of Canada, going to defend those interests. Whereas in policing, we are here to protect the public. Okay, so very, very competing, or a lot of competing interests in that. So that's how it would differ.
It does differ a bit. Do you find, and this is a loaded question for all three of you, do you find military personnel make good cops? Let's go with you, Al. You're giving me a smile here.
Overall, yes, because you have basic training, and the military gives their soldiers the tools, so they'll train them properly to make sure that they can accomplish their job requirements. And so, so Tyrus says, he's the corporal, he's been given certain levels of education and training, but he said he's looking for leadership. The military go, okay, you identified yourself, you want to be, a junior leader, we'll put you on the courses required, and they will give him all the training required so he is successful in doing that.
So he's going to have all these courses coming to policing.
That's right.
On how to be a leader and how to...
Right. So I have 26 years of policing, rank of sergeant, multiple courses in regards to leadership, right, and operation deployments. So my experience obviously will be a little bit different to someone who's a corporal in the Army for 4 years, right? It's just based on your experience, courses, and your education. But overall, yes, because the military does provide the training, the education, to prepare good soldiers, right? And that's easily translated into policing, because policing now we could just build on that.
So, Nick, being into the military, becoming a cop, is it an easy transition? Does it help you become a better cop, or is it that training did not help you at all?
No, I think it does help you become a good police officer, but Tyrus and Al mentioned a lot of the important differences, and I don't think it's hard to transition at all. I do think we all recognize it is a transition because and as long as you recognize that transition from military service to serving your community as a police officer and the various differences, but at the same time bringing the strengths that you bring to the table as a military member, you can make a very good police officer. That training and experience in leadership, that teamwork attitude, your sense of discipline, your sense of duty and responsibility and public service, all those things that many people have, but military members have in troves, makes and you recognize the differences between the two institutions can make you a very good police officer.
Just to add to that, one of the other things that I think soldiers or military members will bring is knowing your role, because in the military everyone has a role, and that's really impressed upon you, and you know your role and what you need to do to be part of a bigger team to accomplish that mission. And so when you transition to policing, Nick could be a major, right? Second in command of a military unit.
Right.
You could be a sergeant in charge of a platoon, a section commander, but I transition here, I'm a constable, and I recognize my role as a constable, and I'm able to do that job, right? And then I think that's where it really helps, because two different elements, right? One can be in a position of authority, one, you're the follower as opposed to the leader, but you know your role.
That's a good point.
And you're able to fulfill your role in the bigger picture in fulfilling that mission as a police officer.
So I'm going to go this to Nick then. Is that a hard adjustment? You come from being a major, am I correct?
That's right, yes.
And now you're not obviously, I don't know how to put this. You're not a sergeant in Peel.
Nope,
So-
not yet anyways.
So is that a big adjustment from making all these decisions, making all these stuff for the military, and coming here and taking? I guess you still are a leader, but I don't know how to phrase this right. Is it an easy adjustment or a hard adjustment from putting your I'm a supervisor hat on to I'm not a supervisor?
No, I don't think it's ever been hard for me personally. I've always, like we've been talking about, there is a difference, and there is a transition between military service and being a police officer. So again, the military, you learn just like in policing, there's a rank structure. There's a bit of a command structure and a hierarchy, and I recognize with my rank and experience in Peel Police, I have a rank structure, and I know where I fit. I've had, we always joke, I had the privilege of serving with Al in the tactical unit for a long time. And in the Army, I may outrank him, but in the tactical unit, he was the boss, and I would follow his instruction, his experience pretty much anywhere. So, we military members know how to transition back and forth most of the time.
You have good self-awareness to be able to do all that. That's really good.
And if I forgot, Al would probably remind me pretty quick.
Can a military approach to training improve police skills? Because the military, they train awful lot. And I notice, I'm just one person here, I'm not in the military, but I notice I played football at a high level. When you play football, you're always training, game day Saturday. And usually you have a lot of success from the training. And that's when I think police should go more training. I don't know, it's just me. I don't know what you guys think about this. But Tyrus, you're in the training. Do you think we should have more training? So this way it'll take away the stress, it'll take away because under stress, no one makes good decisions. So the more training you have, the less stress you have. So do you agree we should have more training in police like they do in military?
I think the training, the way it's structured in the military versus policing, is the way it's structured is similar in that we're trying to create that high stress incident so that we elicit that response. However, we are doing the job day in and day out, and we get those stimuli. We go to a car accident and it's stressful because there's a lot of things going on, but we do that so often, and that is essentially on the job training per se. The high risk, low frequency things, like say, for example, there's a gunpoint arrest that's needed to be done. Those are things that maybe more approach in our training environment would elicit that to be maybe more training on that would be helpful, just for that stress response, because it doesn't happen so often, right? So I think the way the military does it is the crawl, walk, run methodology, right? So start slow, move a little faster, and then you'll gain all of that stuff and then become better at all of the competencies that you need to accomplish.
I think the training does help. I think policing is extremely tough job, and I don't know if you guys agree with me. Maybe because of your background, you're more trained, so it might become easier. And that's why I think military personnel do make good police officers, in my view. Because I look at it, every military person I worked with is always under less stress, always more calm, and works as a team. And I think that's the key to policing. I think we do have to go that kind of route, maybe not the total route, because obviously I do agree with Tyrus, what you said, and Al and Nick, that it is a bit different, but I think it's something we have to put in is more police training. We have to get rid of the stress and all that stuff in policing so we can make better decisions. But military has also done a lot of stuff for police. I think we see a lot of police products and tactics that we use that's come from the military. Could you guys give me some examples of that?
Sure. Well, when I deployed to Afghanistan, you had something called a go bag, right? You had all your essentials and basically a knapsack, heavy duty, and we went. When I got into the tactical unit, officers were still pulling around equipment in Pelican cases. So again, that was something I noticed that, well, very simple. Why are we pulling around our gear in Pelican cases that are heavy, cumbersome? Why not go to the go bag? And that's what I was introduced, and actually I think it's still used today in the tactical unit. We still use the go bag. So very simple thing. To go even further, we were able to train with members of GTF2, right, the tactical unit, and taking lessons learned, and the way they trained, we're able to implement it with the tactical training, which then actually trickled down to, I know, with Tyrus now, and it's now service-wide, and that's one of the stress-related responses to an incident, right? So the blindfold, they remove the blindfold, and you have to deal with that. That we were first introduced to that type of training with the tactical unit when we worked hand in hand with GTF2, and so here it is now actually being done service-wide. So it does have
there's a lot of stuff,
and it does trickle down. There is a lot of information. One of the things I think we need to adopt more is lessons learned. The military is good on that. What is our lessons learned from, again, whether it be a small mission, whether domestic operations, international operations, lessons learned, and is always building on it. I think we just need to, again, we do that, but we need to hone that a little bit more, I think.
I think we have a lot of stuff, like on our vest now we carry a tourniquet that came from the military, I'm assuming.
Yes, so we've adopted a very military style course in casualty care. It's because we deal with a lot of trauma within our region. So we do offer training to officers that is very similar to what the military gets in terms of a little bit higher level care of first aid training, including tourniquets. So that is something that the military has influenced.
And that's had that's stemmed from the war in Afghanistan, because the training Al and I received when we went included a lot of that training, and that's had a direct benefit, I think, to the community, because that training to deal with trauma during critical incidents, it's not only protecting police officers, but the public on the street. There's been many cases, I'm sure all of us have, of things that we call them tourniquets, which is a first aid thing that we all carry now on the street that have been used to save lives at calls on the road with the public. Quick clot, which was something we carried in Afghanistan, which is a clotting agent to help stop bleeding. All things that police officers now carry as standard equipment.
Yeah, we do carry those now.
That help, or the modern version of them that we are able to use and are part of our toolkit to help the public on for calls for service.
That's true. I'm going to put you guys on a spot now. What do you think is the best quality of an officer should have? Is it being able to handle stress? Is it making decisions? Is it how they talk to the public? There's so many where we could go with this, and everyone has a different answer. So I'm going to go with you, Tyrus. You number one on this, because you're shaking your head. Why me?
I think the ability to connect with a person, whether it's a stressful incident or it's just a regular interaction on the street, being able to talk to somebody in a positive manner, just it holds so much value in being able to, whether it's de-escalate the situation, but being able to connect with that person in some way does a lot more than, say, having to resort to using force because that's the last resort kind of that we have. Using your words is someone, I guess, coined it as verbal judo or whatever the thing is, but there is something to be said for having that tact and being able to talk to the public. That's probably the best quality in an officer.
I'm 100% behind you on that. Does anyone have...
I agree with him. Just from my 22 years of policing and then my experience in the military, anyone that's able to communicate their message and actually de-escalate a situation just by conversation and listening, it works, right? And it's to the advantage to everyone that's involved. And so if you're able to, again, bring yourself to a situation, actively listen, right, and then communicate, what's required so that there's understanding, many times you've just resolved the issue at hand. And I think that's huge.
I totally agree. Now, Nick, last question I want to ask you. If I'm 17 years old and I come to you, I want to join the military, what would you tell that individual?
I would say if they are interested in it, and I would get them to research. I would encourage them to research the various opportunities that the military has to offer, because there are a lot of different ones, a lot of different jobs, a lot of different routes that a person can take. And then I would encourage them to do it. I joined at 17 in high school, like my friends here did, and 23 years again and change. I haven't looked back. It's given me so many opportunities to serve my country, which was really important to me, to serve my community, and it's challenged me to be a better person and to be a better Canadian, and given me skills and opportunities that led into my career in policing as well. So I would, if somebody's looking to serve their country, be a better person, get skills, and be challenged, then I would encourage it for sure.
Would you all recommend people to join the military? Or how about even policing? Let's go with policing. What would you tell a 17-year-old who wants to be an officer right now?
At 17 years old, I actually will tell them, get your education, get some life experience. Policing, it is a long career. So I had one young corporal in the military. He wanted to go on tour, and he also wanted to become a police officer. And I told him, you have the opportunity to do an operational deployment internationally. That's something that experience you can't replicate. And I told him to do it before he became a police officer. And he actually did go on tour, and then he then came back and was able and successful becoming a police officer with Toronto. But he came back and said, you know what, thank you for telling me to take that opportunity to go on deployment, because you're right, it's an experience that you can't replicate. So, and that's just not military. I would tell anyone that's 17 years old, there's a lot of life experience to be had. You don't need to start policing at 17. Go out, experience the world, live a little, and then
That's great
come
advice.
back and then start your policing career.
It's great advice. Like from talking to you three today, I think anybody who wants to join the military, it's a good career. Anyone who wants to join police, it's a good career. You can do both, like what you guys are showing. And with Remembrance Day coming, I just want to say, just for the people who don't understand what Remembrance Day is all about, we recognize Remembrance Day every November 11th at 11 a.m. It marks the end of the First World War, and it's an opportunity to recall all those who served in Canada's defense. On Remembrance Day, we acknowledge the courage, the sacrifice of those who served our country in all our wars. It's not just the First War, it's the Second War, it's the Korean War, it's Afghan, it's all of them. We acknowledge our responsibility to work for the peace they fought so hard to achieve. And for my guests today, which is Tyrus, Al, and Nick, thank you and to all veterans, thank you for your bravery and heroism. Thank you for your service, and thank you for all that you continue to do. Thank you guys for coming here today. Thanks a lot.